Welcome to Shrimperscast with me, Bernie Friend.
And me, Steve Mansfield, on today's show.
Cards at the treble to save 2 points for Blues on the road at Aldershot and Rochdale.
Pressure mounts and rumours swirl, but no solid news yet on takeover.
A busy week for the Shrimpers as we look forward to Oxford City at home on Tuesday night and a critical date in the High Court on Wednesday.
And we've got an exclusive interview with the amazing Southend Fan Protest Group. Okay, so here we are again, back in the big chair, Bernie. Thank you for joining me on today's Shrimperscast. We're recording this on Sunday, the day after the Rochdale draw. But you yourself went up to Aldershot on Tuesday night. How was the game?
Yeah, it was really good. I had a trip up there with Dave the Photo in Hotel Divan. Really great performance from the boys. Great turnout from the fans. Played some lovely football. Really pleasing on the eye, but very committed as well. Just a bit unlucky with the chances. We just need that little bit of luck in front of goal. We could have easily come away with a win. Definitely the better team. But yeah, as we said in the intro, Cards got us a goal, got us back into the game, got us a point, which he happily repeated the trick again at Rochdale on Saturday. But I think the most interesting thing the other night was talking to fans on the terraces at Aldershot and seeing how they feel regarding the court case coming up on Wednesday. And the thing, the buzz that was going around, that a lot of people were talking about, obviously, you know, there's three scenarios I see. There's administration and a points deduction. The club gets wound up, or the club gets bought, which we've had nothing solid about yet. But the buzz that was going around was a lot of people were saying, well, what they'd take on Wednesday is the club going into administration. So it means we have to go into National League South next year. But if that means playing at that level without Ron Martin at the club, then everyone seemed very, very up for it, which is a real sign of the times where we are and hoping that the club survives.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of unity amongst the fans, isn't there now, in terms of people kind of getting together, protesting, wanting the right sort of outcomes and the same outcomes rather than there being anything too fractious, really. And we had a great interview last week with Liam Ager from the Shrimpers Trust. So if you've not actually heard that one yet and you're listening to this now, make sure you go back and have a listen to Liam's interview. The full thing is absolutely brilliant, really insightful. And on today's show, in a little while, we're going to have an interview with a couple of fellas who we can't name, who are part of the Southend Fan Protest Group. So that stuff is really insightful. Back to the Aldershot game, I caught it on the telly myself, and I think what you said there about the football that they're playing is just absolutely spot on. My observation was they're playing the level that they're playing, the sort of the style of football, how nice on the eye it is, the possession based. It's definitely not National League football, is it?
No,
it's not what you think of.
It's not National League football. I mean, it is something that you'd see at a much higher level. And as I've said on here before, the cliche is that teams mirror image their managers, and they are like Kev. Kev was a tidy player. Kev loved to pass the ball, but Kev also liked to get his foot in. Now, I think as well as the way we play football and how lovely that is, I think, again, it was surreal. It was surreal watching it. Even though we were entertained, it was surreal watching it because, again, the other general consensus I got from fans on the terraces the other night was that winning, losing or drawing didn't necessarily matter. I mean, I remember, watching Southend and you get superstitious, you're bending your legs together or scratching your left cheek towards the end of a game because you're hoping it's going to stop the other team getting a goal. But there's none of that there. You just sort of, you're sitting there, standing there numb, if you like. It's not about the result. It's just being there at this time to support the team in their darkest hour and getting behind Kev and the boys and showing them that we really, really appreciate the efforts they put in. And as we've said before, everyone united. And again, back to Aldershot, it was so lovely at the end when the management team and the players all come over to clap the fans that were on the terraces and filling up the seats, which was followed by Tommy Widrington, the Aldershot manager who still lives in Southend, coming over to give a real big clap to all the Southend fans as well, which is so lovely to see that what's happening is, spreading to other people. They understand what's going on. And one of the Shots players grabbing a Martin Out scarf from one of the fans, sticking it around his neck and giving them all a clap as well. So it's lovely to see not just our fans united, but football seems to be united in a whole behind our current plight.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in terms of numbers, it looked like a fairly sizable away following that they took over to Aldershot.
They said about 430 officially, but there had to be about 700 there because the seats had over 100 in them, and we had fans all behind one goal and a few stragglers around the side. So it was a great turnout for a Tuesday night. Really, really good turnout.
Excellent, excellent. So that covers off the Aldershot game, and then it was another draw yesterday, coming from behind to nick a 2-2 and another valuable point on the road. None of us managed to make it to Rochdale, but Paul caught up with Pip, aka Diversity, so let's have a little bit of a listen to what he had to say.
Welcome back to Shrimperscast, Pip. Thanks again for being our fan in the stand up north. So, how was your journey? Any train strikes or traffic jams to scupper your journey?
Good evening again, fellas. Thank you so much for having me back on again, guys. I hope you lot on the other side of your devices aren't getting too bored of me yet, but you know what? One thing I'm getting bored of, it's these traffic jams already. Getting up to Rochdale was horrid, I tell you people. The M1 had issues. I heard the M6 had issues from other shrimpers who got up there. It was a horrible display getting up. I'm just so glad the result on the field was worth the travel. Getting home, it's always better with a decent positive point or even a win, but the journey home with a positive point was so much better. Get in there, you Blues.
Yes, mate, and it's always better, isn't it? Fighting your way back from 2-0 down to nab a result, and that's the second draw in the spin, both from losing positions, and that man Cards has done it again, hasn't he? Talk us through it, mate.
Harry Cardwell is a saint, I tell you that. You've said it perfectly. He has saved our bacon with these goals in the last two games. But we have to give fair credit, I believe, to Gus Scott-Morris and Jack Wood for both of their assists up in Rochdale. Both peaches of a ball onto Cardwell's head. And Cardwell did the work, put it past their keeper and goal. It was a joyous sight to see that, especially on the second one. The fans, they felt that second goal was coming way before it did. And the energy after it went in those stands was monstrous.
Of course, another monumental effort there from the boys on the pitch, leaving it all out there. So, any fitness updates? How do we get on?
I just hope, whatever the fitness updates are going to be from the club, that Kev, Darren and Banno don't come in knocking on my door anytime soon asking me to put on a shirt, because, boys, I am not the fittest bloke for that job. And the levels those players put in every game for us are stupidly insane. Again, some of them playing straight all the way against Aldershot, all the way against Rochdale, and they didn't even look half tired by the end of it. Came over to us fans, applauded us again. It was a beautiful sight, but you could see Wes Fongook in the background hobbling. No sign of Nathan Ralph. It is nervy when you mention those two big names for our side not being here.
Oh, absolutely. Well, let's talk about the big man, our gaffer, Kev Mayer. 100 games in as Blues manager. Well, what can you say?
I think what made Saturday extra special was being Kev Mayer's 100th game for the club, and the fact you're not going to see a harder job in English football. No, not just English football, across the nation, really. You're not going to find another harder job than Southend United take on. And to succeed 100 games under a chairman who has not paid your staff, your players on time, and has left a monstrous waste of barren mess behind him is absolutely stupid to be saying Kev has reached 100 games. It just shows his commitment, his loyalty and his passion to be a Southend player, manager, icon and hero. True legend is Kevin Mayer.
Oh, I couldn't have put that any better myself, Pip. But, so what are we saying with regards to Oxford City Tuesday night, ahead of the court case on Wednesday? Surely another positive result is on the cards, pardon the pun.
For those of you who don't know, Oxford City have not won a league game in their last 5 outings. We all know the story. They come to roots, all these teams, not on a good record, and they absolutely turn us over. I'd honestly be happy if we cruise out a 1-0 or a 2-0 win, or even 2-1, anything. Just cruise out a win on Tuesday night. In terms of court hearings, I just hope Monday, Tuesday, we hear some light news. We've not heard anything. Fans are on the edge of their seats, mentally, physically. We just want even a little bit of positive news, and you'll have Roots Hall back banging where it is, rocking Roots Hall on a Tuesday night.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be Roots Hall is going to be rocking. What an atmosphere there's going to be there Tuesday, I'm sure. And we will see you there, Pip. And, well, thanks again, mate, for coming on.
Many thanks to the both of you gents again for having me on for another week. People, I hope you enjoyed my little segment with these guys. If you've not, get subscribed, get following their podcast. My name's been Diversity. See you in a bit.
something that really stands out to me as not a Southend native. I'm a Derby County fan by trade, and we went through some difficulties in recent history. Obviously, still trying to kind of climb back up to where we should be in the Championship, but really interesting to see, and an observation of mine is the way that the Southend fans have really got together and really got united behind, the movement of trying to get Ron to sell up and just leave the club alone, basically. And, we had the interview with Liam Ager last week from the Supporters Trust, the Shrimpers Trust, and he alluded to that as well and went into a lot of detail about how their role really is about kind of trying to unite all these different groups of fans. And you caught up, didn't you, this week? You managed to get hold of the details of a couple of the guys involved in the Southend Fan Protest Group. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how that came about, Bernie?
Well, they contacted me. It was all very, very cloak and dagger. I just got a random text saying that they'd like to come onto the show and speak about what they're doing, which is something I was up for straight away because, again, like you say about Liam and the rest of the Shrimpers Trust, people that are giving up people that are giving up their own time when they've got jobs, families, to do all this extra work to, highlight our plight and help save the club, I've got the utter respect for, especially when you see what's going on. But these guys, they got in touch. They don't want to be named, which I totally understand. So I think we've labelled them Mr. X and Mr. Y, very best we could come up with at short notice. So they got in touch with me, said they wanted to come on the show. And it's an interesting because we get to talk to them after Saturday where they had a 1-year transfer embargo party outside Ron's house. A good couple of hundred people going down there during the day. And they were out in Camden on Friday night handing out an invite to his son Jack. So let's see what they've got to say about that. So this is Bernie Friend on Shrimperscast, and today I'm joined by two of the leaders of the Southend Fan Protest Group, and are going to tell us about what they've been up to, trying to apply pressure to Ron, get the club sold, save the club. And the first thing I wanted to ask you, boys, how are your hangovers today? Because you had a bit of a party at Ron's house yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah, it wasn't well. That's a good question about hangover because, as you will probably be aware, all drinking is banned when we're on a protest, particularly at Ron's house. So heads are fine, actually. Heads are fine at the moment.
Good.
Teeth are all aching because obviously we had cupcakes and the sugar content was significantly higher than we expected. So
I saw those, the Martin Out cupcakes. They're very impressive. Did he get one delivered to his doorstep?
No, unfortunately not, because there was more fans than there were cakes. So we didn't have one left over for the measly man, unfortunately.
That's a shame, because I'm sure that all rats and rodents enjoy a few crumbs at the table. But obviously, so you were all there. How did it go Saturday? You obviously, while the Hardy fans made the trip up to Rochdale for another great point for Kevin the boys, you were obviously there keeping the pressure on going down here. How did it go yesterday?
Yeah, it went fine. I think a few people were a little bit disappointed that we didn't get bigger numbers, but appreciated that it was a bit of a late call out, and I think a few from the supporters groups couldn't commit to it. So I think everyone's conscious that if you can't commit to it, you can't push it as hard on your own platform, right? If you're not going to be there yourselves. But that said, we still had journalists from national titles were down there again yesterday.
Brilliant. So that's actually it's showing that it's hitting the streets and people are starting to take notice on a much larger scale. So credit to you boys and girls.
Yeah, and whether there's 4 people, which quite often there is on cold dark nights or early mornings on some of the ad hoc ones, 40 people as there probably was over. I mean, probably 200 people came down yesterday because there was 40 to 50 people continually, but people were coming and going.
That's brilliant.
Or whether there's 4,000 people, like regardless, he has to hire security and he leaves. So he's kind of dictated to by the fans when he can come and go nowadays so as to not get disrupted.
Yeah, and you're making life uncomfortable for him, so that's job done. So, I mean, and, did you see him yesterday?
No, he'd long gone. I think once he knows the times, etc., the wife puts the foot down and tells him he's got to go out. So...
Okay, and obviously you were the party I was referring to at the start. It was the 1-year transfer embargo party that you were celebrating at Ron's yesterday, obviously being the instigator of the year-long embargo. And you obviously had a busy Friday night as well, because I see a few of you were up in London handing out invites. What happened there?
Yeah, there was there's been an interest from, a lot of people about, particularly the Trust have done a lot of good work in terms of, I think Liam's mentioned it on the previous pod and wrote a letter recently about all the companies that across the myriad of the Martin Empire, as it were. And a lot of people have been keen on, extending that protest to his son, because he's a director on a number of the controlling parent companies. And obviously neither of them come to games. So it's very hard to put a public profile on those protests. But someone reached out who's close to the family and said, look, I understand, it didn't come to us. They came to broader supporters groups and pointed out that they may know, where an invite could be delivered for said party. So once that information was shared, a couple of the guys popped up and dropped him an invite, basically.
I mean, I saw the card.
We got on RSVP though, did we?
No, I bet you didn't. But I mean, I'm sure as you kindly invited him, he didn't bring a bottle either, did he? Obviously, lost his bottle on that one. But I mean, we're talking about it's Jack Martin you're talking about, I believe, and from what you're saying, very much a mini me. And as you advertised, it was obviously up in Camden. So you went up there, you put the invite through his door, you stood outside with the flag to take the protest to that location. Did you say that someone reached out that sort of told you where this address was? I mean, is that from what you said? Is that someone close to the family? Maybe someone inside or a friend or something that doesn't agree with what they're doing to the football club? Is there a bit of a mutiny on the bounty there?
Do you want to comment, Mr. Y?
Well, I mean, it's one of the courses of action that has sort of come from the supporters groups, sort of putting their heads together. The Shrimpers Trust, us, all the others that are involved in it. One of the courses of action that we've sort of decided on is just raising awareness of the Martin family's activities amongst their various business associates and sort of other associates. Because a lot of these people that sort of do business with them day in, day out, if they're, not related to football, they might not be so acutely aware of what's going on or how grave the situation is at Southend. So with that in mind, the idea is to sort of educate really these people that are doing business with the Martin family outside of football, to enlighten them as to what they're actually like and what they're getting themselves into by going into business with them or doing business with them.
Because that's going to hurt them, isn't it? That's what's going to really hurt them. Yeah.
So it's unsurprising that someone sort of potentially close to the family has, sort of looked on the situation as it is and thought, well, hang on a minute, I'm not too sure about these guys now, and sort of, has been decent enough to reach out and, as you say, sort of reach out and get in contact.
Yeah, because this will be, if they are having dealings, as you say, and doing business, and if we get into the worst case scenario going down the line, having dealings with them, this could come back on them as well and tarnish their reputations, can't it? So they need to protect themselves, I would have thought.
Absolutely, yeah. It's it's as I say, anyone that's now seen to be publicly doing business with Jack or Ron Martin, they're sort of in a sense tying themselves with that same brush. If they're sort of looking to benefit out of what's going on at the football club, or if it's completely divorced from the football club, it's got nothing to do with it whatsoever, then they're going to inadvertently find themselves sort of covered in all this bad publicity. So yeah, it's unsurprising that they're potentially maybe looking to distance themselves from them a little bit.
Well, good work from you guys. Now, I mean, rewinding back a bit now, I mean, you've been doing so much good work. The people outside Ron's house, going up to London Friday, giving all in your spare time. The plastic rats on the pitch, the tennis balls on the pitch. Obviously, it disrupts games, but, these things need to be done. You've already said national media are taking notice. Obviously, myself, I got my employers, the Mirror, to do something on Saturday with the boss and highlight that, as other papers have done. I think the Times did a great piece last week. So that's major credit to you guys. And it hasn't always been that way. I mean, I if you like, stalk on on some of the forums like Shrimper Zone, and over the last few years, when I've been expecting this to happen for a long, long time, I see, a lot of people still sticking up for Ron, even as we were, cascading down the leagues, that he was still the right man for the club. We'd be lost without him. And I think it was turning, but it needed all to be joined together, didn't it? So How important is that to you that it's now more of a coordinated effort? It's the Shrimpers Trust, it's yourselves, it's the other factions that were sort of maybe doing things on their own, maybe not being taken seriously by everyone in the ground, but it seems now to be a united front, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely integral. I mean, from when we first started our little campaign, which is probably, you're probably talking sort of what, January? We were sort of protesting outside his house, getting 4 or 5 people sort of, every time.
And I bet you had a few people turning their noses up you still at that point, didn't you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. There are plenty of detractors. I think what the core issue was there was a sort of feeling amongst a lot of the fan base that the protesters going to his house and sort of undertaking this sort of action, they're kids, they're troublemakers, etc., etc. So one of our group's main aims over the last few months has been to sort of set out publicly, just say, look, that's not the case. We're sort of ordinary people. We've got full-time jobs. We just love our club, and it's we come from all walks of life. A lot of us have only met doing what we're doing. We've sort of come from all sides of roots, so it's not the case. It's been about sort of getting that message across that we are just sort of ordinary fans, now we've managed to do that, and sort of got the Shrimpers Trust on board, etc. Their backing of what we're doing has been absolutely integral. I mean, as I say, when we first started, we was getting numbers of sort of 10 maybe outside his house, but then as soon as it's backed sort of officially by the Supporters Association, we had that one a couple of months ago where we had hundreds of people outside his house on Benfleet Road, everyone driving by, tooting their horns. It was a big event. So that it's almost a sense of legitimacy that the backing of the Shrimpers Trust has lent to us, and I think that's a reflection on the fact that we've managed to get that message out there and sort of maybe dispel some of the myths and rumours about who we are and what we're about.
And if you don't mind me asking, and without giving too much away, can you tell me what you both do for a daytime job when you're not out there protesting?
Yeah, I think, there's probably about a dozen of us. So when myself and my colleague here, we just shared a couple of WhatsApps back in November and December because we just couldn't believe that there was an absence of a platform for protest, like you say. It's quite astonishing. And we really did it to channel a platform for everyone who wanted to do it. There's so many detractors, so many people who were opposed to Ron and just hadn't been able to do it. And it was really in the absence of the trust or anyone else grabbing it and doing it and being prepared to do it, and recognise that fans had agency to do this stuff, that we kicked off. And we did a quick, we just arranged a quick leafleting of a game. And with that, there was probably a dozen people met in a pub, and we'd not met each other before, but we were united in wanting to take action against Ron. So, we as a group, we kind of span from early 20s to late 40s, and we've got all kinds of blue collar, white collar, professional, manual labourers, armed services, everything, amongst us. We're a real kind of eclectic group, as it were. We span every occupation, really. Every occupation, and most of the age groups probably, unfortunately, probably the demographic and the age group that the trust can't reach at the moment. And that's probably the integral part that we've managed to try and unite those two elements of the fan base, I think.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Am I right in also thinking that there may be one of your number that may have more of a political background, if you like? Yeah,
we've got an elected local councillor amongst the number of organisers as well. We've got multiple decades of experience in various industries and political experience as well. So yeah,
it's serious. Like you say, you're serious people.
Yeah. We're not.
Lost you there, Ben.
Sorry, I was saying, from what you're saying to me, the list of people you've just listed off, the fact that there is a councillor among your number, you're serious people. You're not just like a load of little kids masquerading on Twitter that want to cause a bit of trouble, which we've obviously seen. But when it started, you have got serious people in serious positions within your number.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not, we don't. All right. It was, when you have things come off like we had last week, the big demo down Victoria Avenue with the float, etc. Yeah, it is a buzz, and we do enjoy that side of it. But it's not we're not doing this because we want to. We'd much rather not have to do what we're doing. You know, it's only being done because, well, it's being done in the absence of anything else, essentially. So yeah, we're all just ordinary people with sort of regular full-time jobs. You know, just fully functioning members of society. Essentially, just don't want to see our club die.
I mean, thank God for you as well. I mean, you know, I was always a bit like, God, we will sleepwalk into oblivion at Southend because people want to just, you know, sit on their hands and not do anything. And maybe the Trust had a little bit of stick for that in the past as well, but the Trust have been brilliant. They've really stepped up to the mark. I think they've been so professional in everything they've done. They've got great people there. And again, listening to what Liam told us last week, we're going up to the court and, you know, raising it all again. I think the Trust have been brilliant, people like yourselves. When I saw that parade starting from Pier Hill down to the ground last week, I mean, it did bring a tear to my eye, just seeing people of all ages, you know, kids, mums and dads, grandparents, all walking together, all different, you know, Southend kits from all different, you know, generations, that even, you know, the clown in the car, everything, but doing that big march in such large numbers. And as we said, being organised, because there have been other clubs, you know, you saw what went on at Oldham and other clubs when this sort of thing started happening, and we didn't seem to get into that level of protesting. So there's been some great things that you guys have been involved with over the last few months, but to see that unified effort, that walk, that march to the ground, it made me so proud to be a Southend fan. So I imagine the buzz for you. What was it like on the day?
It was, it was both awe-inspiring and extremely satisfying because, like I say, we started off as two of us sharing a couple of WhatsApps and then 12 of us meeting in a pub. And I think the first protest we did against Eastleigh, exactly as you say, it was like, you could see the comments online, a lot of them from Trust committee members, funny enough, at the time, on their own tweets, you know, calling us a bunch of, you know, teenagers and hoodlums and whatnot. And then we took a banner in the South Upper, and 50% of the people there that day were booing us, jeering us, clapping security when they took them off us. And fast forward 8-9 months, and you've got exactly what we aimed for at the start. We discussed that, you know, we need a broad-based, legitimate campaign. Like, that's what we wanted. And it was in the absence of anyone else doing it. So, you know, we were walking down Victoria Avenue, and you couldn't see the front of the march and you couldn't see the back. It was mind-blowing. It was absolutely mind-blowing. And, you know, once again, there hasn't been a hint of trouble, a hint of criminality, a hint of lawlessness.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's brilliant. That is a really great point.
It's all legitimate all along. Like, we've known all the way, you know, there is a militant element amongst the fan base. You know, there is a kind of more rowdy crowd, but we've always but they're right to protest against Ron. So it's like, how can we help channel that and unite it with, like you say, the kind of, there is a groundswell of apathy and acquiescence to the chairman. You know, like deference to, because the guy's got a big house and wears a suit and is a businessman. Somehow we should accept him, and he's afforded a higher moral judgment than anyone else. Whereas in reality, he's the one knocking staff, knocking suppliers, knocking the tax man. You know, like, he's the most morally bankrupt out of everyone. And yet still somehow people accept it.
Well, it's funny. It's so funny. Obviously, I've just returned, before I speak to you, Steve and I run our boys' football team, Catholic. And little known to me today that the lad that refereed us, he was the son of the former long-term club secretary who came up to me and said hello after the game, after we left Priory Park. It was a very important part of the club for many, many years. And she was telling me after her 25 years of service what Ron had got her as a leaving present. And I held my breath because I knew something good was going to be coming. She got a compliment slip saying thank you and never be afraid to come back. And I think you talk about morally bankrupt. I think that underlines it there, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the man is just, well, yeah, morally bankrupt. Though, so you can't really sort of define it any other way. You know, it's just to pick up on what my colleague was saying a minute ago about there being this sort of aura of he's sort of this, you know, unquestionable entity before this movement started. You know, he almost had sort of the high ground, as it were. There's been a lot at the start. There was a lot of sort of concern about, you know, it's not fair on his family, for example, the protests outside his house. But on the other hand, these people were not thinking about the families of his employees who now potentially can't be fed because they're not getting paid to work. So there's always seems to be a bit of an imbalance between how we were viewed and how the workers and the fans were viewed, and then separately, Martin was sort of put on this pedestal. So I think we've sort of hopefully even the playing field a little bit there now, and sort of managed to drive home the fact that this man's actions are not beyond question. He is, as you say, morally bankrupt, and it's absolutely right that he's called out for it and held to account for it.
I think that's a great point because, like you say, I mean, there's someone's got the irritation of a load of football fans standing outside his front door, well away from his front door because he's got a big front garden. But you're talking about people that couldn't put bread on their table were probably getting paid an absolute pittance down there, So I completely agree with what you've said 100%. You've done exactly the right thing. And just rewinding back a little bit again, which is such a great point that your colleague made about there's been no trouble, there's been no crime during these marches. They've all been peaceful protests and for the right reason. Now, I remember as a teenager watching Southend as we rose up the divisions going in the North Bank, and there were some real unsavoury characters that followed the club, some nasty people. And again, would not ever condone anything criminal at all. And this is why it's great the way the protests have gone. But with Ron being... it being well known where Ron lives, are you surprised that something else hasn't happened?
Yes, in short, yes. But again, I don't know if it's because of what's happened with the protests, but where we've kind of maintained a very strict and straight line on it, that almost now it's viewed that everyone kind of respects that line. I guess. I mean, I don't know, but that can be the only thing I can put my finger on for it. That, the national media that were there yesterday, we were making that point to them. They were like, "Oh, there's no police here." We said, "Look, the police have been called a couple of times. When they come, they just look and say, 'Oh, you're just standing on the pavement. Okay, we've got some crime to fight. We're going to leave now.'" And they pass. They see no one's drinking, etc., etc. And the guy said, "What? No one's ever set foot even on his lawn?" And we're like, "No, not so much as set foot on his lawn." So. There'll still be people pulling their hair out saying that's the wrong thing to do. Well, take up the mantle and do it, sort of thing. You know what I mean? We're not prepared to. We believe that there's been an avenue for proper organised protest that the whole fan base can get involved in, and certain things will detract from that. We've tried things. We've been happy to try them and see that they don't work. Like, our position is that there should have been a coordinated boycott. That has been our position for quite a while. Yeah. We've discussed that at length with the supporters groups, and as you know, a number of us boycotted for years prior to this. But you kind of realise, and this is why we kind of did it, is there's so many people that have been opposed to the ownership of the club, but have just been doing it individually, and you're a bit pissing in the wind, if you're not doing it with a publicity area and media attention and knowing that it's coordinated and collective. So that is our point, but there's no point calling for one if it's probably the last real divisive thing, and that's not been. We've been really trying to consciously build and grow and make it a thing for everyone. To the point where, like you say, back in January, our experience in the South Upper, etc., you would never believe that pretty much the whole stadium back then would have been prepared to stop a game twice.
But how amazing is that for you that from that little, like you say, the couple of WhatsApps and, the people that were against it all, and now you can see it. How great when you're at that stadium and you can see everyone clapping, everyone singing Martin out and standing up. I mean, again, I'll keep saying it. Congratulations to you guys for actually getting this all going, because without your efforts we wouldn't be here now and we wouldn't be getting the attention that we're getting, and this could be a lot more gloomy than it already is. I mean, what obviously we'll look forward again now. I mean, obviously it's a big week for the club. Obviously Tuesday night, Oxford City at home, the night before the trip back to court, where the club could I think, as the Mirror put it in our article on Saturday, we're on death row, so the plug could be pulled by the judge. Have you got anything special planned for Tuesday night's game? Because I've got a feeling, it could be quite a lively one.
Yeah, it could be. I guess there's a couple of things. One, obviously, some things we try and keep a little bit close to our chest, so that stuff can't be scuppered.
The art of surprise.
Yeah, exactly. But on the other hand, now whilst as like a dozen people, we kind of have thoughts, throw ideas about. A lot of it now is really done with the broader supporters groups as well, because so that we know that one, you've got a lot more ideas. There's a lot of imagination and creativity when you pull in, especially across the supporters groups. You've got probably the most dedicated people there that've all got good ideas. So a lot of stuff kind of happens now in collaboration, coordination, ideas bouncing off each other. So we're really at that stage again for this week, I think, trying to work out, because on the flip side, again, you don't want to detract and deter people as well. And I think a lot of people are viewing Tuesday like it could be their last game ever at Roots Hall again.
Yeah. Do you feel it could be?
There's a chance, isn't there? There's a chance,
I mean, I'm an eternal pessimist, but when it comes to us and you see the fans on Pier Hill and the crowds that we get compared to other clubs, and I'm also an optimist in this way, because I do believe whatever happens on Wednesday in the court, this club will live on in some way, because in my biased Southend United head, we'd be the biggest club to go under. And you've seen the Wimbledons and the Aldershots do it and teams like that. And I believe there'd be enough of us there to bring it back if the worst came to worst. So I don't think it'll be our last game ever.
No, it may be our last game in this incarnation, right? And the end of the season as we know it. Or, the power gets cut and then we're in a right old pickle as well.
Yes, because we've got that as well. Got that to face as well, mate. But anyway, we'll be watching Southend City, won't we, next season? So that'll be fine. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Let's hope.
We'd embrace that fully. We're right behind that. Again, from the start, we've been willing to stare that in the face. Like with a boycott, one concern people have is, that would send the club under, and we're kind of like, well, if that was the consequence, so be it. He's brought it on himself, and that would finally cut him out of the club, as it were. Not that we'd want that outcome, but when you're negotiating, you can't back away from that. Do you know what I mean? No deal has to be on the table, sort of thing. You don't walk into a car shop and not be prepared to say, "Well, sorry, I'm not buying it, mate." No.
Well, a couple of last questions. I mean, what do you? I mean, the general. I went to Aldershot Tuesday, and the general consensus of people that I was talking to on the terraces was they would take the club going into administration on Wednesday and playing in National League South next season, especially with a potentially Western Supermare away on a Tuesday night, which one of my colleagues, Herman, was very excited about seeing the pier there. But they'd take that to get Ron out the club. What do you think is going to happen Wednesday? Do you think we'll go into administration, or do you think we'll go bust? Our option 3, as we hear things are still going on with the Aussie, will be saved. There's 3 options. What do you think, lads?
Our position has always been broadly, nothing's done until it's done.
Agreed.
Ultimately, in that arena, we don't have too much control. Have next to no control over what goes on there, whether the club gets wound up, whether the club gets bought, whether the club goes into admin. So all we can do is just carry on doing what we're doing. As we say, there's various rumours flying about, various sort of people, particularly politicians, lining up to take credit if the club is saved already. But it's all just rumours at this point. Nothing's done until it's done. So we just need to carry on as we have been. Our position from the start has always been Martin out at all costs, and we do mean at all costs. Any incarnation of Southend without Ron Martin is better than this one with him. So that's been our position from the start, and that's not likely to change anytime soon.
Totally agree, and I think that's a great place to leave it. And all I would say is whatever happens next week and going forward, thank you so much from myself and everyone at Shrimperscast and all fans of the club, not just at Roots Hall, but around the world. And please keep doing what you're doing, and we are all behind you, and we're very grateful for all the effort you guys have put in. So thank you very, very much.
Nice one. Thank you, Stephen. Cheers talking to us.
We can't wait to pack the flags away, to be honest. But
what do you do? I'll have one off you.
Close with Martin out.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to be able to go to the football without feeling like you're going to work, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I bet it would. Oh, well, thank you very much, lads. And I'll look out for seeing what you've got planned for the game on Tuesday, if anything. Take care.
This week's Shrimperscast listeners are in for a real treat, as not only have we had Bernie on the show, we've also, I'm sat here now with Paolo, Mr. Paul Hill. How you doing, Paul?
Very well, thank you all. Very well. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks, mate. Thank you for joining me again. And we are all looking forward to this game against Oxford City Tuesday night at Roots Hall. Should be a very, very special atmosphere with everything that's going on around the club. We're all we're kind of going mob-handed, aren't we, from Shrimperscast? So, Paul, obviously here to preview the game today. What are your thoughts on the game?
Oh, I cannot wait. Considering the results we got at Aldershot and away to Rochdale, I think we're bouncing and we're going into this game full of confidence now. And considering what's happening at the High Court, this game is very special, isn't it? And I think we're going to get a real positive result out of this game. I think we're going to win it, and I'm that confident. I'm even going to stick my neck out and say 3 or 4-0.
You're going to stick a bet on, Paul.
I am. I may well do. Yeah.
Get down that William Hill.
Well, of course. I mean, when you consider they've conceded 10 in their last 3 alone, scoring 1.
Yeah.
And looking at the confidence of Cardwell, well, the whole team really, and. I've got a bit of inside information. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, go on.
Well, so in my day job, I work for a national charity, and we had an event at Southend United today. And as we were doing the ground tour with the pupils, they said the first team were on the pitch, and what I saw was fantastic. The train, not giving too much away because I don't want Kevin to come around and give it, say we're giving away the answers, but they look sharp. They look very sharp in training today on the Roots Hall pitch, and I cannot wait for tomorrow night.
Nice. What a little treat there then. That was quite lucky. So how come they're not over at the normal place training?
Well, I think the water's run out and the pitch is too hard, and they don't want any more ACL damages or broken legs. So
the water's off again?
Yeah,
or did it ever come back on?
That was what they said. The pitch is too hard at Roots Hall, so we'll take that as
right.
Whatever that means. But there we are. But as I said, Oxford conceding 10, only scoring 1. When we look back from the, across just for the last month, they've scored 11, conceded 19, and it's got to be 3 points.
Yeah, with Cards in the form he's in, he's obviously our danger man. Any particular players that Southend will be trying to keep quiet, do you think?
Well, again, they are, a team that have come up. A lot of their squad have been in and around the non-league pyramid. So they do have a few players, a few that have played in under 23 level. Josh Parker I would say, would be the worry. Very well travelled, most notably for Gillingham, I'd say, and Charlton. He went away to Serbia and Slovenia, had a few seasons out. But again, he hasn't really scored in many games, but he has that experience, and if anyone could hurt us, it would be him.
You usually like to tell us about players that have played for Southend that are playing for the opposition, but any players in that category, Paul?
No, not that I can see. I may have missed a couple out, but like I say, they're a young team that had a good run in last season, but they just lost that momentum coming into the National League. They sit above us on 11 points.
Yep.
If we win, we hit 11, but such is our superior goal difference, we will dump them in the relegation. And well, if things go for us, if Maidenhead don't pick up any points as well, there is a chance we could come out of the bottom 4.
And then go straight back into it if we get another 10-point deduction on Wednesday.
Oh, mate, yeah.
Sorry.
No. But no, you're quite right. This is why this game is so special, because we have to keep supporting that team, supporting those lads, because that's the reality is we could be facing administration. We need every point, every single point, every goal matters at this point.
Absolutely. We're going to try and head up to London, aren't we, on Wednesday as well for the High Court hearing. So we're hoping to be there. If any of you listening are going to be there as well, have a look out for us. Paul's a very distinctive looking chap. Say hello. We'd love to have a chat with fellow fans about what's going on. And Paul, so you're usually very concerned about players that used to play for Southend being on the opposition team, popping up and damaging us. So given that they haven't got any players, you're going to get a good night's sleep on Monday night then?
I don't know. I don't usually get nervous at many football games, but this is the biggest match we will ever have against the judge, against Ron Martin in the court, and it's going to define the next 117 years. It's massive.
Thanks so much for joining me again, Bernie, on today's episode of Shrimperscast. Been an absolute pleasure, mate.
Yeah, always lovely, mate. Thanks very much.
No worries. And we'll be at the Oxford City, nearly said Oxford United then, Oxford City game Tuesday night. All of us from Shrimperscast will be there flying the flag, and we're expecting a big turnout. What are your thoughts about the game?
Well, I think it could be a lively one, could be toxic, however it goes. Let's hope we get 3 points. That's the first thing. But I know for myself that I'm going to take my son. There's a few other people taking their kids as well, because they've never seen a game under floodlights at Roots Hall. They're a bit older now, so we can take them to school the next day. They've never seen a game under floodlights, which was the first time I saw a game at Roots Hall was under the floodlights, and there's always something extra magical about that. And sadly, even though I'm really praying that's not going to be the case, a lot of people have got the mindset that this could actually be the last floodlit home game at Roots Hall, with the High Court date coming up on Wednesday, and it could be the last chance to take our children to go there and experience that magic of the floodlit game.
Yeah.
Let's hope that's not the case, but we're taking out our insurance, aren't we?
We are, yeah. So I'm taking my boy along as well. So should be a good night in terms of the football, and let's just hope for the 3 points. Thanks to everyone who's listened today. Massive thank you to the Southend Fan Protest Group chaps who joined us for the interview.
Brilliant.
Don't forget to follow us on social media, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening to this. That really helps us in terms of the algorithm and making sure that you don't miss out on any episodes in the future. Once again, thanks very much, Bernie, for joining me, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.